As another match week of the WSL season draws to a close, we're here to review it. This game week was an absolute goal fest with 17 goals spread across the 6 matches. We discussed Derby Day in North London, where Arsenal cruised past Tottenham. We discussed the big game at the top, where a tactical masterclass gave Chelsea the win. And of course, the Merseyside derby and the controversial penalty that handed Everton their first win of the season. This is our Match Week 8 WSL review. Alright, it was Match Week 8 of the WSL season and we're here as always to review it. What a fantastic season we've had so far, Harry.
Yeah, it's been a very, very good season. This was a big weekend, both at the top and the bottom of the table. A lot of big results and some really strange results as well that I think caught us off guard. But yeah, overall good weekend and kind of keeping going on this really good start to the season.
Yeah, alright. Let's get started then with Brighton 3, West Ham United 2. What a brilliant game of football this was to kick off the WSL weekend. I think this was probably West Ham's best performance of the season, which sounds weird considering how the game ends and the result, but a lot of West Ham's overall play was quite decent, I thought.
Yeah, they were alright. I think the fact they took the game to Brighton, a Brighton side who, for the best part of the season, have been really well. I've had last game week was a really tough one for them, losing to Arsenal in horrible fashion, but they bounced back with 3 points. But as you say, it weren't made easy for them. West Ham gave them a very, very good game, and the Hammers looking to take momentum from the victory last weekend, or the last game week, and they gave Brighton a game. They were unlucky not to get something from it, but I think it's positivity and it steps in the right direction for West Ham.
Yeah, I thought they were quite good defensively, West Ham. I think you look at all of Brighton's goals, and I think the players did really well to get a good shot away, because they were in tight spaces. You look at the McLaughlin one especially, the first goal for Brighton. She has to cut inside, and she curls it around about 3 defenders, and it just nestles in the bottom corner. Kinga Shemik is blindsided to it. And I thought we saw that again with the Kiko Seike goal. It sort of rolls across the box. Shemik couldn't quite react in time. They weren't overwhelming West Ham defensively. West Ham were quite good at defending their penalty area. They were limiting Brighton to very prospective chances, and you look at the shots, you look at the numbers, and it's 12 shots to Brighton, 12 shots to West Ham, 7 on target for Brighton, 5 on target for West Ham. Only one big chance generated for Brighton, yet they scored 3 goals. And that's where that quality comes in. That's why you look at that Frank Kirby goal to finish the game. It's a really well taken goal, and I think that made the difference. You move on over to West Ham though, and it was 2-0 Brighton when suddenly Katrina Gorey decided she wanted to score some screamers. She just kept having long shots and 2 went in.
Yeah, I mean, leading by example as the captain, 2 lovely efforts, and as someone who benched her in Fantasy WSL, thoroughly disappointed with myself. But a really good game for Gorey, and that's the kind of performances that West Ham need. They need individuals to step up and perform, and that's exactly what Gorey did. And it lifted the whole team. It made the whole team play better. But overall, as you say, beaten by a Brighton side who, realistically, at the end of the day, it was just quality prevailed. And I think there will be concerns for Vidicic. It's 7 goals conceded in the last 2 games, and one of those games was West Ham, who haven't been great this season. But they got the win, they got the 3 points, and that is what matters. It keeps them high up the table.
Yeah.
But it's 3 points at the end of the day and some good attacking results. But defensively, I think there's a few questions about Brighton.
Well, we did a tactical analysis on Daria Vidicic's Brighton side a few weeks ago, and we obviously spoke about why they were doing so well, but one of the issues we highlighted was that there are some defensive frailties and that they are a little bit error-prone. And I think we're starting to see that now. Against Arsenal, they really struggled against the high press of Arsenal, and in this game against West Ham, they just kept giving the ball away to Katrina Gorey at about 30 yards out, and she kept having shots, and eventually, obviously, 2 went in. But yeah, West Ham, they scored these really difficult goals and missed easy chances. There was Vivian Asai played one across the box. I think it was Poibel in there. Was it for West Ham? I think it was Poibel, but big opportunity, might have been Parvey. Big opportunity and puts it over the bar. And there was another one where Katrina Gorey lifted, I think it was the same player, through on goal, and that shot was missed. And they're the opportunities that make the difference here. And it feels like West Ham, this is a point drop for me.
Yeah,
I thought they were really good in this game, and I think they'll be frustrated. As for Brighton, they'll be glad they managed to turn this game around, managed to get that win, because obviously West Ham as a game they would want to be winning based on where both teams are in the table. But yeah, Brighton obviously hold on to third now, 16 points then, only 3 off Manchester City after their result, which we'll get onto in a moment. They are now only a point though ahead of Arsenal and Manchester United though, so it's very tight now in that battle for third. Moving on then, let's have a look at the Arsenal-Tottenham game. Tottenham 0, Arsenal 3, and we move from what was a really good defensive performance from a team who've struggled this season in West Ham to a really poor defensive performance from Tottenham. They gave up so much space in their own penalty area, and Arsenal ran with it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Tottenham, we felt that this would be the game that might re-inspire their season. But what happened was a Arsenal side who are in form and have been phenomenal in the last few weeks, turned up and had an absolute ball. Tottenham just... To be honest, I if I was a Tottenham fan, I'd be embarrassed. The fact, North London derby and the team turned up and played like that, they were played off the park. Really, really poor. They made it way too easy for Arsenal. That being said, Arsenal once again were brilliant, took advantage of Tottenham's errors and played incredibly. And I mean, Arsenal, they're scoring goals for fun. They're picking up 3 points after 3 points after 3 points, and they've looked really, really good in the last few weeks, and it's clicking in every single game for Arsenal. It is clicking. It's all going right. It does help when your North London rivals don't turn up to the match, though.
Yeah, it's a really well taken goal from Russo to start the game, and that's the kind of strike that we've been missing from Russo's game, a turn and a shot, and it was really well taken. It's what we want to see more from Russo, what we want to see more of from Russo. I think she's got that confidence back to go and try that in the penalty area and get a goal, and that's exactly what we want to see from Alessia Russo. My only confusion with Russo is why not play her the full 90? I know they've got Juventus coming up in the week, which may be an explanation for it, but this is the kind of game where Tottenham was so defensively frail. Russo could have got 2 or 3, and then suddenly I think that's so much bigger for her confidence. But she scored again. I think that's important. Frida Arnhem on fire this season. She's now on more goals for club and country than Khadija Shaw. So make of that what you will. Brilliant performance from her once again in this game. A really well taken finish. And obviously Blackstone came on. And by this point, I thought the Tottenham defence had just given up. It was the way I described the Tottenham performance was pathetic. They didn't lay a glove on Arsenal. 60% of the ball to 40%. They had 3 shots all game to Arsenal's 15. 2 on target to Arsenal's 8. They offered nothing. No threat at all to Arsenal. They couldn't defend for their lives. They're a mess at the moment, Tottenham. An absolute mess. And I think Robert Villaharm is on borrowed time at the moment because I just don't see how it improves. Recent weeks you could point to the fact that England was out of position, that Raso was out injured. They started with a frontline today of Raso, England and Naz. They're simply running out of excuses at this point. Yeah,
Villaharm's in trouble. I mean, as you say there, with those stats, even if they'd scored every single shot they had, they would have still drawn the game. That's the situation they're in. They were miles off Arsenal. And people go, it's Arsenal are better, but it's not just been Arsenal. It's been way too many poor performances from Tottenham in games that I think you've got to remember they beat Arsenal at home last season. That's the difference. They've gone from beating them 1-0 to getting absolutely played off the park. And I know it's a bit of a different Arsenal side, but you can say the same for every team for Tottenham. They took the game to other teams last season. This season, they've been played off the park by them. And as you say, it's a question of, well, when is it going to stop for Tottenham? They're just going to keep dropping down the table if they're going to keep playing like that.
And this easily could have been 4 or 5. Probably should have been 4 or 5 for Arsenal. They had the opportunities. They're still not 100% clinical in front of goal. But really good performance from Arsenal. The big debate now is around Renée Slegers. A lot of people calling for her to have the job permanently. What are your thoughts?
I mean, how can you argue against it? They've been absolutely brilliant under her management. They've won every game bar the United draw. They've looked brilliant in Europe under her. They've looked brilliant in the WSL. Yeah, for me, I don't think you can argue against it.
Yeah, fair enough. I did see an article from Tom Gary, which I thought was quite interesting, saying how Arsenal should be looking at the best person for the job rather than just Slegers, but I don't know if there is a best candidate right now.
Yeah.
Because you're not getting Emma Hayes, you're not getting Serena Weigmann, you're not getting Sonia Bonpastor, and you're not getting Jordan Graudes. So how do you compete with Chelsea in that regard? So I think Renée Slegers right now is doing a really good job, and they've got to give her at least to the end of the season. All right, on to Chelsea versus Manchester City then, and what a big win this was for Bonpastor's Blues. 2-0 Chelsea, Harry. In the context of the season, how important is this?
It's big. It is big. There's still a long way to go, and there's Man City are definitely not out of it, but Chelsea have put themselves into a really, really strong position with their game in hand, and I think it's more of a statement, really, that a 2-0 win will show is that right now they are better than Manchester City. And across that 90 minutes, they did play the better football and they deservedly got the result. And I think that for Chelsea, I mean, Sonia Bonpastor becomes the first ever manager to win her first 7 games in the WSL. They've won 10 on the trot. It's incredible. Like, this Chelsea side look unstoppable at the minute, and it's a really worrying prospect for the rest of the league.
Yeah, I think City simply couldn't break Chelsea down. Chelsea set up perfectly in this game. They went to more of the 4-4-2 out of possession shape, which saw them be very narrow, very compact. I think we saw players like Lucy Bronze have a really good game playing that right back position. Baltimore as well. I think the fullbacks did really, really well. And we're going to do more of a tactical breakdown on Wednesday, so look out for that video. But it was really good performance from Chelsea. They do defensively solid. They didn't have much possession. Manchester City throughout the game, 63% of the ball. Chelsea just 37%. But when you look at who had that possession for Manchester City, Alana Kennedy made well over 100 passes. 118 accurate passes for Alana Kennedy. So it was just all with Kennedy. And a lot of the time, as we noticed, sat in the shed end, especially that second half, or the first half, sorry, where Kennedy was right there. She was just stood on the ball and then didn't make. They weren't breaking through lines. They didn't have an out ball. They didn't have a way of playing through Chelsea. I thought Chelsea's press was really strong. I thought their defensive positioning, their out of possession positioning was really, really good. They shut off all of Man City's forward passes. City barely had a sniff in this game. One big chance all game and they missed it. And they had only 8 shots, 2 on target. Chelsea had 15 and 6 on target while having just 37% of the ball. This was a perfect example of how to play against Manchester City from Chelsea. They hit twice, Ramirez and Brighton, both goals of huge individual quality, but also because of the system. We saw the first goal, Ramirez bullied Alana Kennedy, absolutely bullied Alana Kennedy, gets to the ball and then just strikes, obviously scores a goal. Guro Wrighton, a striker of the highest quality, cuts inside and finishes it in the far corner. Chelsea, absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant.
It was one of those where I think with 20 minutes to go, Gareth Taylor and his staff were probably thinking, we're 20 minutes away here from nicking a point at Stamford Bridge. And I think that would have been a decent result for City. I think at that point in the game, with 20 minutes to go, still level, they would have expected to take something from the game. And then Chelsea, kind of, as they have done all season, had a 5-minute burst where they found 2 goals, completely tore City apart and turned the game on its head once again. And we've said it so many times about Sonia Bonpastor's team, is that they have these moments where they just completely flip the game. They were 1-0 down to Liverpool. They were 0-0 with Liverpool. They scored 2 goals in 5 minutes and completely killed the game off. And they did it again here to Manchester City. And I think City, yes, they missed Hemp. Yes, they missed Alexandri. But I don't know if they'd made much of a difference, because the problems for City weren't getting into it, weren't what they were doing in attacking areas. It was getting into them. And so for me, Lauren Hemp, I don't think would have done much, because she wouldn't have touched the ball really. Neither did Mary Fowler.
I think it may have helped with ball progression, the fact she could have received the ball a little bit deeper and carried it past players. I think she could have dragged Bronze out of position a little bit in that regard, which we didn't really see Fowler or Fagino, whichever way they swap round, do. And I think that made a huge difference. The fact that Lucy Bronze was able to be a bit more comfortable with who she was marking. I thought it was a fantastic performance overall from Bronze, and I've criticised her quite fairly, I think, but quite heavily this season. But this was a really good performance, and if we can see more defending like this from Bronze, that will be a real help for Chelsea. Overall, brilliant performance across the board. They were just more combative in midfield. They kept Yui Hasegawa out of the game, and that for me was the big difference. We didn't see Yui Hasegawa, and that's why City couldn't create anything. Hamano, brilliant performance, and I think people won't really notice Hamano's performance, but for me, she was Chelsea's best player. Kept Yui Hasegawa out of the game just by sticking close to her, making sure she couldn't get on the ball, and that was it for City. Other than that, they really couldn't lay a glove on Chelsea.
Yeah, it'll be concerning for Gareth Taylor. Yes, there's a long way to go, and they've still got to play Chelsea, but they've both got to go to Arsenal, and Arsenal look like they can beat anyone at the moment. And asking Manchester United to beat this Chelsea side is a big ask, because Chelsea just look on the top of their game. I think it's fair to say this is probably one of the best. It's the best start to the season we've ever seen, and it's probably one of the best Chelsea sides we've ever seen. And that is a scary prospect, that it has got better since Emma Hayes left, and that's a mental statement to say.
Well, it's something we never thought we didn't think was possible, but this Chelsea side looked brilliant. I think the big thing this side has that perhaps Emma Hayes didn't was tactical flexibility, and I think so. I love Emma Hayes. I think she's the best man manager in the game, in the women's game. I think that her connection with the players is fantastic, but in terms of tactics, I think Bonpastor is just a level above, and we're seeing this tactical flexibility. I mean, Hayes was a good tactician, don't get me wrong. You look at the Barcelona away leg last season, where Chelsea set up really defensively, went to a 3-5-2 type shape, that ended up looking like a bit like a 5-3-2 out of possession. And that was a fantastic tactical decision, because Chelsea went on to win that game, because they were able to block Barcelona out in those defensive areas and then spring forward, and obviously Erin Cuthbert got that goal. I don't think we saw that enough from Chelsea, that flexibility. This season, we've already seen how Chelsea can manipulate the opposition in different ways. We saw the second half against Arsenal, how Chelsea were able to go really defensive and just hold on to 2-1, and it was a fantastic defensive performance. We saw it here today, where they just shut City out, and it's fantastic from Chelsea.
Yeah, I think you have to have questions, especially you talk about Bournemouth still being at that level above, and you could see that because I think the fact that Taylor didn't adjust. After that first half, City didn't change anything.
I don't know why they didn't.
Exactly, it's bizarre. I don't really know why City felt they could play the same way and get a different result.
They didn't make a sub till the 80th minute. They were 2-0 down. And this is the problem with Taylor. We've seen it time and time again. He's too reactive. He's way too reactive. After that Ramirez goal, he's got to be shouting the subs, getting them on instantly.
Yeah.
Instead, he waits 5 minutes and it gives Chelsea time to get another goal, and then suddenly you've got 10 minutes to find 2 goals. Subbing on Chloe Kelly and Laura Coombs. I mean, no disrespect, but that's not the firepower that's coming off the bench to change the game. And it was too late. Too little, too late. Chelsea, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. City will feel frustrated because they're 2 points off Chelsea. Chelsea have a game in hand. We could be sat here in a week's time talking about how Chelsea are 5 points clear. And I don't want to assume United's a win, because it's not. United could pose a real threat to Chelsea. Could have a really good performance there for the first time this season. But they are unbeaten. But at the moment, if we go off form, Chelsea should win that game, and City would find themselves 5 points off.
I mean, it'd be something if Mark Skinner was the first man to stop Sonia Bonpastor this season, but weirder things have happened in football, and you never know. But
Indeed,
a good game for Chelsea.
Yeah, really, really strong one. Let's move on then to a battle at the bottom. Aston Villa 3, Palace 2.
What a game.
High goal scoring game week this was in the WSL. These two sides, it just felt really end-to-end stuff. I thought Villa were the better side for large parts of it, but really wasteful. You know, they had 22 shots, 12 on target. Cheyenne has another brilliant performance, it has to be said, but Villa just simply didn't put enough in the back of the net, and they allowed Palace back into the game because of that. But Palace, really decent performance. Ultimately, I think quality just prevailed in this one.
Yeah, very much so. These were two sides that desperately need a result, and I think that showed. You talk about that basketball nature. It was everything was very high paced and a little bit frantic because they both needed the result so badly. And in the end, the more experienced team, the higher quality team did get the win. That's kind of what we expected. I think
I'm not even sure if it's that. I think it's the fact they had quality to come off the bench.
Yeah,
Emily Salmon comes on and scores a goal.
I think that Palace will be frustrated. I think with Blanchard scoring so late on, they would have expected to take something from the game. 94th minute winner is always a hard one to take, but overall, I think Aston Villa did deserve it, and it's a big win, and I think it's a win that Villa have deserved for their performances over the last 7 weeks. They've played really well, not got the results. They finally get a win on the board, and that is a massive step in the right direction. This was a big game. I think if DePaul had lost to Palace, had lost this one, they'd be left bottom of the table, and then there'd be a lot of questions. But I think this proved that they can also get results as well as play well. Palace, they took the game to an Aston Villa side who I think are very, very good. So if I was them, I wouldn't be too disappointed. But they would have fancied getting a point from this game at least.
Sometimes the table tells lies, and I think with Villa's positioning, it definitely does. I think they've been unlucky. I thought with Paula Thomas, suddenly their attack looked like it's working again. And I know they shouldn't be so reliant on their left back. But I think in terms of how DePaul wants them to look in possession this season, Thomas is really important to that.
Yeah.
So you can see why that was an issue. I thought Kirsty Hansen was utterly brilliant throughout this game. She got the assist, of course, for Rachel Daly's goal, but around that, she was a fantastic performance in that game, and a pattern, a well-taken strike. I still got a little bit of apprehension around their defensive performance. I still think they're a little bit too open at the back, and that's why Palace got goals. Because Palace didn't have loads of chances, 12 shots, 5 on target to Villa's 22. It shouldn't have been a contest, but Villa were a bit wasteful, and Palace were clinical when they were able to get the breakaways.
Yeah, very much so. It's been a weird season for Villa because, as you say, some games they just haven't looked like scoring, and then other games they've looked really poor at the back. But then you compare that to the United game or the Chelsea game where they were brilliant defensively but couldn't score, and then you compare it to this game where they found loads of goals but looked shaky. So they need to find a balance where they look solid and score goals. But it's a big win. It was a frantic game, a messy game. They did well to win this game, I think. But a huge 3 points.
It sees Villa rise up to 8th in the table, which, given the context of other results, is quite important. They're only a point off Tottenham now, only 3 off Liverpool. So they're in a decent position. As for Crystal Palace, they've slipped to bottom. Worst goal difference in the league. It's starting to look worrying for Palace. I don't think it's panic stations yet.
No, I mean they're joint bottom with two other teams. It's all
Yeah.
to play for. It's really, really tight, and they've got some big games coming up in the next couple of weeks. I think they've got West Ham and
When they come back from internationals,
Yeah.
it's West Ham, and they do have Manchester United as well. So you never know.
Yeah, you never know. Mark Skinner might be feeling generous, but yeah, a couple of big games coming up for Palace. The West Ham one's massive. If they draw or win that, that's a huge result.
Yeah. So I mean, they need to really.
They've got they get as long as they keep getting points on the board, they're not doing too badly.
If Palace want to stay up, they have to beat West Ham, I think, which is tough because I think West Ham are a better side than the table suggests as well. But
to be honest, for the side in the relegation zone, you're on 5 points from 7 games is not that bad at all. To be honest,
no, I don't think it is. I think the point share at the bottom has been weird this season.
Weird. This game week's thrown it into problems because there's one team that got a win that really shouldn't have won.
Well, exactly, because it's brought Liverpool back down, I think, into the conversation now. Tottenham are in that conversation, but yeah, and it means everyone's sort of got points now. But we will get on to that team you're alluding to now. Everton 1, Liverpool 0.
I hope for everyone's sake this is the worst game of the season. It was really poor from every aspect, from the football being played, from the officiating, from whatever happened. It has been the worst game we've seen this season, and I really hope that we don't see a game that gets worse, because if there is one out there, it would do bloody well to beat it.
Yeah, this was abhorrent to watch. We streamed it, so you can watch our live reaction to it, but Everton just never wanted to play football in this game, and the referee gave them absolutely everything. I thought it was one of the worst refereeing performances I've ever seen, and it wasn't for high profile. Well, there were a few high profile errors, but it was just the constant errors. The fact that every time the ball went out of play, it was an Everton throw, regardless of who touched it off. I mean, I don't know what was going on there. I don't know how they were deeming some of these as Everton throws. They just kick it off, and then the referee, and then the Liverpool players were absolutely mystified as to how that decision had come about. The penalty, utterly disgraceful refereeing, I have to say.
Yeah.
Hayashi is nowhere near the penalty area, throws herself into the box, and the ref's given a pen. She's right in front of it. There's no better position the referee can be in to see that penalty. It's a really frustrating one. It feels like we have to have some sort of VAR system, especially when this weekend we were all in the main stadiums for the women's games. VAR would be possible, and so I feel it's really frustrating in that regard that we don't have some sort of system, because there were clear and obvious errors in this game that could have been cut out, and that was never a penalty for Everton. Then you get into the second half, and there are 3 decisions. Now, I don't think they're all penalties, but you've got to give at least one of those, maybe 2, because the one on Kerry Holland for me is not even up for debate.
Yeah, that one's a penalty for me. It's a two-handed push.
The push from Sarah Holmgard, an absolute joke. You've got the Cornelia Kapocs one, which I think is
messy.
It's messy because does she have possession of the ball? Potentially not, but that is a foul. So you can look at it both ways. But then the Olivia Smith one I think was dubious at best, but there's still more of a penalty than the Hayashi one, and that for me was a bit weird.
It's a difficult one. It's a difficult one. There's two officials up that end of the pitch that could see all of those decisions, and they both came to the same conclusion. I don't get it. I really don't. But even as a referee, if you've gone in there, someone must have told you that wasn't in the penalty area. So as soon as that Liverpool player goes down the penalty area, I'd point to the spot immediately and just kind of make myself even. But it was a shocking one. It was a shocking one from all the officials. I mean, the linesmen just kept putting their flag up in the Everton direction whenever fancied it. It ruined the game, because what happened was Everton got absolutely handed a goal, and in the second half they didn't have a shot and they won the game.
They had one, Emma Bissell's one, that almost went out for a throw.
That does not count. I'm not counting as a shot.
Well,
it didn't even go in the 6-yard box.
So technically that was a shot. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Everton didn't come forward. They didn't leave their half for large parts of the second half. They had 35% of the ball to Liverpool, 65%, 6 shots to 17, 2 on target to 6 on target. Liverpool were brilliant in this game. They just didn't put the ball in the back of the net, and I think that's a point of real frustration, because I don't think they played badly at all. No. Brosnan had a stormer. The defence I mean, the numbers look like they did well, but a lot
Just
of the
rough
time
and
they
tumble.
just committed loads of fouls and got away with it.
Yeah.
You know, their box defending wasn't great. They just kept fouling players and the ref wasn't giving it. It's just a real frustrating game. And I don't like Liverpool, but they should have won this game.
Yeah, I
Feels like an injustice.
I don't really have an opinion on Liverpool, but I just feel
That's
for
what
them.
I mean. It's not like I don't hate Liverpool for any Liverpool fans watching, but
Yeah, I felt bad for him. It was horrible to watch, especially Matt Beard. Matt Beard's a legend of the WSL. He was just, he did very well to contain himself, because if I wouldn't have been surprised if he'd lost it, because I would have lost it. I think anyone would have lost it in that position. Unbelievable decisions.
to be fair, he was practically just chatting to the fourth official for most of the game.
Yeah, had his head on his shoulder at one point. But I think that Brian Sorensen was running rings around the pitch. He was having a great time, because he will. Well, I hope for Everton's sake that they realise how lucky they got, and they don't think that they've won that game because they played really well. Because if they think they played well, they're going to get battered this season. But it's a big 3 points.
Well, will they? Because they've got Tottenham next. They can probably do the exact same thing and get another 3 points, and suddenly they're sixth in the league, and could they get Europe? So
wow, it's just wow. I just don't get it. 1 minute Brian Sorensen under pressure, and then all it takes is get the rub of the green in a game, and suddenly you're now mid-table nearly.
yeah, the second lowest scoring team in the league. Only Leicester have less goals than them, but Leicester have no attackers because they're all injured. They've shipped the third most in the league. It's just not been a very good season, but they are now sat in ninth with a -10 goal difference.
Wow.
They're not doing too bad.
Good for Katja
So
Snoyce. Scores her first goal of the season. And you could see from her...
Well-taken penalty.
It was a well-taken penalty, and you could see from her reaction there was a lot of relief there. Finally getting on the score sheet. A big goal for her.
Finally doing something. It's not that she's not been able to score, she's just done nothing for the first 7
Yeah.
games. Finally getting on the score sheet with that penalty here. But yeah, big win for Everton. A frustrating one for Liverpool. I think the context of the season, it just sort of puts Liverpool out of the conversation. Liverpool are in no man's land now, because there is no chance they're going down unless their injury concerns get worse, which, to be fair, they might. Everyone just keeps getting injured for Liverpool. There's no real chance they go down the season, but now they're 6 points off Manchester United, 7 points off Europe. It just feels like an unsurmountable gap.
There's a long way to go, but they've got so I don't really know how they're in this position. That before this game they'd only lost to Chelsea and City, and that was brilliant. And now they've lost to Everton. It's another. I don't know what this Merseyside derby Brian Sorensen is. I don't know how he keeps turning up.
Some weird voodoo
He's
shit.
played he's managed in 5, and they haven't lost a single one. 1-3 and
He just
drawn
gets up
2.
for Derby Day.
Maybe he just pays people for Derby Day after that game. But yeah, a huge result for Sorensen, a huge result for Everton, and they've gone from bottom to 9th with that win, and I just find that incredible.
Yeah, well, let's move on to our final game then of the game week. Leicester City 0, Manchester United 2. It wasn't a vintage game, but it was a game where Man United were definitely the better side.
Yeah.
Very dominant performance, really.
Yeah, it was probably the most reasonable result of the game week, to be honest, in terms of all the games that we saw.
If anything, they should have scored more.
They probably should have scored more, but it was a decent performance. It was a good 3 points. It was kind of a game that I think most people knew was going to happen. Leicester haven't hurt anyone this season. They're really struggling without Rantala and Mouchon, and I think that if they can't start finding the back of the net soon, they are just going to get relegated, because if you don't score goals, you're not going to win football
They
games.
had 1 shot on target.
That's just not good. I know it's Manchester United, but that's just not good enough. That you have to have more. Even Tottenham had 2 against Arsenal, and they looked horrific. Yeah. So it's just work to do for Leicester. A lot of work to do for Leicester, but good performance from United. It's now a win for Skinner, and they're 1 point off Europe.
Yeah, I still think the numbers really flattered United in this game. They had 23 shots, they only put 6 on target. I think people will just look at the 23 and go, well, they were clearly dominant, but I think a lot of them were just speculative efforts. You look at the goal for Turland, it was after a first half where United were really struggling to do much. They just couldn't break Leicester down. Hasey just kept going backwards and forwards on this fullback until she eventually puts the ball in. And Turland, I mean, it's so far away, I have no idea how she put the header home, but she just manages to loop that header in the back of the net, and that made the difference, because in the second half it gave United that cushion, and that gave them that belief. They came out 14 shots, 4 on target in the second half. Again, 3 big chances, 2 missed. They weren't prolific, United, but they got the win over the line. Overall, 56% possession. It's not bad. It's another win under their belt. They're unbeaten this season, United. I've not been convinced by them yet.
I mean, yeah, they've got Chelsea next week. That's the massive game for United. If they somehow get something from that, then it's another conversation where we still have to work. I still don't know where Man United are. I think the Chelsea game, if they get something from Chelsea, that's...
Well, to me, they're nowhere near Chelsea and Man City, but we'll see.
I don't think they are. And, I mean, when this Chelsea side, when they've got to travel to Chelsea, and this Chelsea side have not dropped a point this season, it's going to take something for Mark Skinner to magic something up. But we will see what happens. But United, I think they'll be pretty happy where they are. They're only a point off third. It's not been a bad season at all. Somehow, they're on the same amount of points as Arsenal. I don't know how they've done that, but they have.
I was going to say they're unbeaten, yet an Arsenal side who had a collapse and a manager leaving are suddenly ahead of them in the table.
It's bizarre. It's so bizarre.
That's the most United thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, and they're behind a Brighton side who have lost 5-0 to that Arsenal side. An Arsenal side who had, according to most people, had a horrific start to the season under Jonas Eidevall. I don't know. United just do these things.
They drew with Arsenal, drew with Brighton, drew with Villa, and suddenly they're fifth.
I think they drew those teams, so I don't get how they've dropped points to them because they haven't lost on them. It doesn't make any sense. But they're there. They're still in the conversation, and that's what matters.
That is what matters. Let's have a look then at the full table. We'll start at the top as always. Flawless Chelsea maintain their perfect start, 21 points from 7 games. They've still got that game in hand coming up next weekend. A plus 22 goal difference, 12 better than any other team in the league. 25 goals scored, 9 more than any other team in the league. Huge from Chelsea so far. Manchester City in second, slipped up this weekend against the champions. They now find themselves second in the league on 19 points. 2 points off Chelsea. Could be 5 points if Chelsea win their game in hand on Sunday. Then it's Brighton in third. A fast start for Vidicic's Seagulls, but there were signs that good start may be starting to fade. And with Chelsea on their next game, that's going to be a really interesting one on the 8th. Then we've got Arsenal in 4th. No idea how they're here. What a weird season they've had so far. They're now only a point off Europe, though, which is a really good start for them. Only 5 goals conceded, which is less than Manchester City, a plus 10 goal difference. They are back in this fight, Arsenal. 4 points off City now. Let's see what they can do for the rest of the season. In 5th, it's Manchester United. They're level on points with Arsenal. They're unbeaten in the WSL so far this season. How have they done it? Nobody knows. But they have got Chelsea up next, so we'll see if that unbeaten record maintains. If they draw it, they could be on 4 wins, 4 draws, and they could be up to 4th. They could be up to 3rd. What a crazy season. In 6th, then, it's Liverpool. They 2 wins, 3 draws, 3 losses. A weird old season for Liverpool. They've not been able to kill teams off, and they lost to their local rivals this weekend. Only on 9 points now. 6 points off Manchester United, 7 off Europe. Tough start for Liverpool. They've just not converted their good performances into results. In 7th, it's Tottenham, 7 points from 8 games. They've been terrible this season, but somehow they've managed to get some wins on the board. They've conceded the most goals in the league with 21, more than Crystal Palace, who are bottom. Awful. Awful start to the season for Tottenham. They've got a mountain to climb now. Aston Villa in 8th finally got a win under their belt this weekend, which is a really positive thing. It means every team now has won, and Everton, of course, as well, back to winning ways. Villa in 8th, Everton in 9th. I don't know how Everton are here. Let's not question it. Let's see where they are in 2 weeks' time. 3 weeks' time, I've got an international break. In 10th then, it's Leicester City. They are the lowest scoring team in the league, but they have also only conceded 8 goals, so they might just draw every game 0-0 and survive. That seems to be their plan at the moment. It didn't work against United. Will it work next week? We'll find out. In 11th, West Ham United. They're actually playing quite well, West Ham. They're just not able to get the results under their belt, but they have got some nice fixtures coming up, and the big one against the team below them, Crystal Palace, who are in 12th, is their next game. That will be a huge relegation 6-pointer. Palace bottom of the league, minus 14 goal difference, the worst in the division. But they are joint bottom with West Ham and Leicester.
Tight, really, really tight at both ends of the table. Lot to be played for.
Well, yeah, there's 6 points between 1st and 5th, and then 4 points between 6th and 12th.
Wow.
So everyone's really compressed this weekend.
Yeah.
But Chelsea could end up 5 points ahead of everyone.
Well done to
that. Could be the biggest gap in the table.
Everton
it's between 1st and 2nd, and just everyone else is really tight.
Yeah, it's incredible. But yeah, huge game coming up. Huge games coming up in the next few weeks.
Yeah, huge game week. So we've got Chelsea Manchester United next Sunday, then we're into the internationals. Then we've got 2 more rounds of the WSL season before the Christmas break. which is,
And it's
very
Christmas.
exciting. And then it's Christmas. Yay! There we go. But other than that, I think that's everything for this video. We'll be back on Wednesday. We're going to do a bit more of a tactical deep dive into the Chelsea-Man City game. Look at what went well for Chelsea. Look at what went wrong for Man City. So go check that out when that drops. In the meantime, you can go check out our video from last week, our preview for Chelsea-Man City if you want. That'll be on screen now. Or go and watch any of the other brilliant videos in our catalogue. But that is all for us today. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. And we'll see you next time.
See ya.